This episode of The Young Turks is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. Use the promo code TYT1 and get 10% off your order.
For weeks, I have been saying, will someone do a poll on Wisconsin and let's figure out who's on which side and who is, got the momentum and who's losing this battle. Because the reason I asked for that is it will determine policy. These polls aren't meaningless. Politicians look at those polls very carefully and a lot of times act based on it. So, for example, in Wisconsin, if the poll comes out saying, hey, we don't support collective bargaining rights and the Democrats are wrong, the Democrats will definitely buckle, come back into the state, and Walker will get his way. If the polls come out the reverse, well, then the Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature will be a little hesitant to keep backing Governor Walker. Maybe they flip over and they strike a deal with the Democrats. So that's why it's important. So now we had an AFL-CIO poll, but obviously they're labor. Obviously they're on one side. We had a Rasmussen poll, and they're incredibly conservative and slanted in that direction. So I discounted both of those. I shared them with you, but I said, look, take it with a huge grain of salt. And then we had a USA Today CBS poll that said by about a 2-to-1 margin that people are in favor of collective bargaining rights. But of course, Republicans jumped in. They said, we didn't like the phrasing. No, it's just one poll. It doesn't count. So here comes a second poll, New York Times, CBS News. And the answers that we get out of this are incredibly clear. And they back up exactly what the USA Today CNN Gallup poll was saying. So let me give you the numbers. Americans oppose, this is quoting the New York Times here, Americans oppose weakening the bargaining rights of public employee unions by a margin of nearly 2-to-1, 60% to 33%. 2-to-1 margin, Americans say, do not weaken collective bargaining rights. We want them to have collective bargaining rights. That is very clear. Governor Walker is on the wrong side of that. The Democrats are on the right side of that. Okay, now if you thought that was clear, let's do some of the other numbers and you'll see how much clearer it gets. When they ask people about, hey, should we cut the pay or the benefits of public employees to reduce the deficit? 56% said no, don't cut their pay. Only 37% said yes, cut their pay. And it's not just, cut their pay for the hell of it. It's cut their pay so that we can reduce the deficit. And still, 56% to 37% said don't do it. I don't care if you don't reduce the deficit. Don't cut their pay of public employees. How much clearer do they need to be? Those are huge margins. In a poll to get a nearly 20% margin, and on the first question, nearly double? All right, if you're still not sold, let's give you more numbers. When they asked, hey, do you think the salaries and benefits of most public employees are too high, about right, or too low? Now remember, Mitch Daniels, governor of Indiana, Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, are talking about how the public unions are the elite and that they're sucking the private guys dry, etc., and how they're a step above. Now, that's nonsense. We showed you numbers that, in fact, when you equal out for education, public employees make less than the private sector, sometimes significantly so. Anyway, but they asked people, hey, what do you think? What's the level of pay here? 61% of those polled, including a majority of Republicans, said that, in fact, public employees' pay was either about right or too low, not too high. A majority of Republicans and independents and Democrats all agreed it is too low or just about right, not too high. How clear is this? Governor Walker is wrong. People don't want to cut their pay. They get that the public employees are not paid extravagantly and that they're, not. And they're saying, look, even if we got a deficit problem, they're paid too low or barely about right. Don't cut their pay. Don't cut their pay. Don't cut their pay. And certainly don't take away their collective bargaining rights. I got one more for you, though. As if all that wasn't enough, you know how Governor Walker and all of them say, hey, listen, what can we do? We have no other options. Well, apparently the American people do not agree. And when they asked them, hey, how should we reduce the deficit? They also had a clear answer here. Let me find it for you here. Given a list of options to reduce the deficit, 40% said that they would increase taxes. 22% said they would choose decreasing benefits of public employees. and 20% said they would cut financing for roads, and 3% said they would cut financing for education. So, again, by a 2-to-1 margin, when given the choice, hey, should we cut their pay or should we raise taxes? People say, let's raise taxes. And that question is not framed, let's raise taxes on the rich. It says raise taxes on everybody. So guys, in a poll, when they're asked, Americans say, hey, raise my taxes. I don't want you to cut the pays of the public employees. That's amazing. If you framed it as raise the taxes on the top 10%, my guess is that number would shoot through the roof. Like Governor Walker, what did he do? He just cut taxes for businesses and for some of the top people in Wisconsin. And by the way, did you notice the last number? That was Governor Walker's other proposal. He's cutting education by $900 million in Wisconsin. That polled the worst. They said 40% said raise taxes, only 3% said cut education to balance the budget. Look, if we actually in this democracy cared about what our people think, the numbers are incredibly clear. They match the same numbers in CNN Gallup poll and in the New York Times CBS News poll. People want collective bargaining rights. They want it for public employees. They don't want you to cut their pay, and they want you to balance the budget by raising taxes. But apparently, Republican governors don't give a damn what people think, and they're going to do what their funders want them to do. And look, unfortunately, in our broken system, to some degree, that makes sense. They think, well, the people of Wisconsin didn't get me here. The Koch brothers got me here. They're billionaires. They're the ones that funded my campaign. They're the ones that spent millions of dollars against my opponent. And we tricked the people of Wisconsin, in Governor Walker's case, into voting for us because we had more money and we ran more ads. And so now I'm going to deliver for the people who got me here, the billionaire donors. So in these polls, my guess is Governor Walker isn't going to change his mind at all. Now, who can change his mind, as I told you in the beginning, is the Republican legislators, because as they see this, they don't have as much money as the governors do, the senators, the Republicans on the national level, and they are more connected to their local voters. So this will set a little bit of panic in them. And my guess is if they keep seeing numbers like this, all of a sudden you'll have a little bit of a compromise in Wisconsin when the Republican legislators join the Democratic legislators. Because remember, the Democrats already said that they're willing to take the pay cuts for the unions and for the public employees and for the teachers and for all these people. All they're saying is, don't take away our collective bargaining rights, and that's it. That's all they're asking for. And that's an incredibly fair deal. If you look at the polls, more than a fair deal. They're giving away more than they should. The Republican legislators in Wisconsin should grab that and run.
Cenk, if you want to buy a domain name, you want to know the best website to go to?
I already know it. GoDaddy.com.
First of all, they have 24/7 customer service.
If you want to download GoDaddy's free iPhone, Android, or BlackBerry app, boom, on your phone instantly. And if you go to theyoungturks.com/GoDaddy, you get all of our promo codes, like TYT1 gets you 10% off from all of your orders.
TYT3 gets you a .com domain for only $7.99.
You can't beat that.